Hello, everybody. Let's talk about all the books I want to read in May. If you watched my wrap up for April, you know that I've been in a reading slump recently. My May TBR is built in a way to get me out of the slump a little bit. Yeah, let's get into the books that I'm carrying over from April that I didn't finish. So the first one is The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. I talked about this on my April TBR as well. It turns out this is a literary fiction book. It is a bit harder to read than I expected, which is why I couldn't finish it last month. But I am liking it. I'm planning to take this one a bit slowly and try to finish it in May. I'm liking the book. It is quite different from what I read normally. I look forward to finishing that book, but yeah, it wasn't the easiest read, so it was one of the books that basically put me in my slump. And the other one that did that is A Feast for Crows. And now, don't get me wrong, I love this book. I've read basically 300 pages of this already. I don't hate this book. I actually really like this book. I'm having a bit some issues. Like, obviously, this is the fourth book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and the third book, if you don't know, is great. It is probably the best book I ever read, and the second half of that book is incredible. And this book now has to follow that and pick up the pieces that were left off and kind of lead the series in a new direction. And I feel like that's a pretty hard thing to do. And this book, obviously, after that book that was quite fast paced for this series, has to take it a bit slower and has to establish new storylines. And that takes a while. And the way this series is structured, this book is a bit slower paced than the other books in the series, and we get quite long chapters. So with the other books in this series, if there was a longer chapter, it would be followed by a few shorter chapters. So it would be easier to just read through 4 or 5 chapters in a sitting. But with this one, it's a bit harder to do that because all the chapters are quite long. And long in this series means, like, I think 15 to 20 pages is already quite long for the way this book is written, because you have to. It isn't the easiest series to read because it is written very densely. The chapters are quite long, so you can't just fly through the book. But yeah, I'm making progress in this book. I read 1 chapter already today. I'll read 1 or 2 more today. That's another one I'm carrying over from April. And the third book I'm carrying over from April is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. This is a bind-up of 3 prequel novellas for A Song of Ice and Fire. I've read the first 2. I have to read the third one. And I want to read the third one once I'm finished with The Feast for Crows, because the third one came out after Feast for Crows. That's what I'm doing, so that's why I have to carry this over as well. I actually read the first novella in this at the end of March, and I read the second one in April. So yeah, I hope I can finish this also in May. Alright, these are the books I'm carrying over. I am a member in a book club over on Discord, and I suggested 2 books for this month. So the way that book club is structured, they have like 1 fantasy book a month, 1 sci-fi book a month, and then 1 other book. I suggested that we read Red Rising for sci-fi and The Rage of Dragons for fantasy. And both of them ended up winning the vote. So yeah, I'm committed to reading those. But the great thing is, because I'm battling a slump, those 2 books are quite light reads compared to what I have been reading, so those can actually help me get out of the slump. So I started reading Red Rising on May 1st. Like, I took a break from the books I had been reading. I left them off for a few days, and then I decided, okay, let's pick up Red Rising, because it's different from what I read. It's a sci-fi book, and it's a pretty short book comparatively. I picked up Red Rising on ebook on my Kindle, and I read the first 84 pages on day 1. The first 84 pages were the weekly goal we had for the first week, and I blew through that. So I really like it because that actually helped me get out of the slump. So yeah, I'm thankful for that book, and I hope I can actually finish that one really quickly, because that's a really easy read. And I've heard the series gets better as you go on, so I'm really committed to reading at least the first 2 or 3 books in the series. I've heard mixed things about the first one, but I've heard great things about the second and third one. I'm enjoying Red Rising for now. So if you don't know the premise for Red Rising, it's essentially a far future view of our world. Humanity has figured out how to live on different planets, and our main character is actually somebody who lives on Mars. In this scenario, we have a class system, like humanity got rid of democracy and implemented a class system where you have different classes of people who are signified by their colors. So gold is essentially the ruling class, and red is essentially the lowest class, which are like who are treated basically like slaves. And our main character is a red. So from his perspective, what is happening is the red class is actually sent to Mars, and they are mining Mars for helium-3, which is essentially used to terraform all these planets. And they're told they're helping humankind to get to space and to terraform all these planets. And yeah, that's where the story picks off. I'm not going to say more than that. I have read a bit past that basic premise that's set up, and I feel like it's very, very interesting. I can see like this book is often compared to the Hunger Games, and I can see why it's compared to it, but I think this scenario has a lot of potential to grow out of that bubble. Like, I personally really love Hunger Games, but I feel like there is a lot of potential for this whole story, because while in Hunger Games we had this, like, it was very confined to a single place. It was a far future view of the United States. This is actually a scenario where the whole galaxy is, or the whole solar system is included. So there is a lot of potential for this story to grow from what I think book 1 will be. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, as I said, I read already 84 pages into this, and I feel like this will be a really quick read. The second book that was voted on that I suggested was The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is obviously a quite popular book that came out last year, I believe. Yeah, I've been interested in this book for a while, and I suggested it in the book club, and it ended up winning, so I feel like I should read it now. I don't know a lot about the plot of this book. I've heard that it's like a military fantasy, and I've heard that it's based on African culture, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I'm going into this a bit blind, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this book because the second book in this series is coming out in November. So yeah, and I've heard this is also pretty quick read, so if I still feel slumpy after Red Rising, I'll have another book to go to that will hopefully be a quick read. And the last book I want to read is Dune. Now, Dune is not an easy read from all I can tell. So Dune is another sci-fi book, and I'm reading this because Knickknack's Corner is doing a read-along for it this month. So I joined that, but I will start Dune a bit later. Once I'm done with all these other books, I will pick up Dune. Dune essentially is, again, another sci-fi. This is also, I think it's set like 20,000 years in the future, where, again, the world has essentially conquered a few different planets. As far as I know, every planet is kind of ruled by one family. And on this planet called Arrakis, or also Dune, they have this spice called melange, which I think enables certain powers to humanity. Like, I'm not quite sure what exactly it does, but I know that it has some special properties. Yeah, so the family that actually rules Dune is quite important in this world, and that's the basic premise I know. I'm interested in reading Dune. I know a lot of people are reading it this month. I've heard it's a dense book. I heard it's very heavy on philosophy. I hope I like it. I have noticed that there is quite an overlap between the Dune and the A Song of Ice and Fire fan base. Like, Mike's Book Reviews loves both of those. Like, he loves Dune and he loves A Song of Ice and Fire. And also Quinn's Ideas, who is also, his whole channel is based on those two book series. I'm looking forward to reading Dune as well. And I'm not sure if I can finish all these books this month. I'm planning to, because I hope to finally get out of this slump. The last 2 months haven't been the greatest, but I feel like this month could be really good, especially now that I have put some like easier reads on my TBR. So I hope this will work out well. If you want to talk with me about any of these books, let me know down in the comments. I hope you liked this video. If you did, leave a like, leave a subscribe. Check out my other videos. Some of them should have popped up on the screen right now. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.